Scott?
Yeah, I'll keep admitting, but right now there's nobody in the waiting room, so we're good.
Okay. We are ready to start. Good evening, parents, guardians, students, staff, superintendent, board members. This is our fourth Q&A meeting, and tonight's meeting we will focus on our middle schools. I heard something. We all share concerns that include the health and safety of our students, teachers, and staff, and the continuity of education for our students. Because of the ongoing pandemic, the board, the superintendent, the school district leadership are working to find ways to start the school year the best way possible. It is like we are solving this complex equation with multiple unknowns, and our teachers are working hard without pay to help solve these issues. The first unknown is obviously the behavior of the coronavirus and the way our nation is trying to control it. Until we have vaccines and cure, our plans for the school year must be practical, effective, and flexible in accordance with the local, state, and federal policies. At this meeting, we'll be presenting the learning models that will be used during our school year. That will be the distance learning and the hybrid model. You will hear from the superintendent shortly, and we will have questions and answers period where we listen to you and respond to your concerns and questions. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we thank you for your partnership in our children's education. But before I introduce you to our Vice President Norwood, I would ask that we turn on our video, but keep your device on mute so we are not going to be interrupted by or disturbed by the noises. And we will let you know when it's your turn to ask the question. If you do have a question, please press the raise your hand icon down below. And we know when it's your turn, so we will unmute you to ask. So I would like to now introduce you to our Vice President, Chris Norwood. Chris.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending tonight's middle school Q&A session. As President Lien has spoken, is that we are in unprecedented times right now in terms of public education. And our goal is to be able to build relationships and communicate effectively with our middle school parents. Another one of our goals is to provide as much information as we can based on what we know to date, moving forward. We thank you for your attendance. We thank you for your participation, and we look forward to a productive conversation. Superintendent Jordan.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our parent communication Q&A. This week's focus tonight and Thursday is middle school. Last week we focused on elementary and then also on special ed and our Spanish speakers. And next week we will be focusing on the high school. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce some members of our leadership. We have our board members. You've met our president, Han Yen, and our vice president, Chris Norwood. I'd like to also introduce our board clerk, Kelly Yip Schwan, and board member Min No, as well as board member Michael Tsai. And I'd like to recognize our assistant superintendent of human relations, Mr. Jonathan Brunson, and assistant superintendent of learning and development, Ms. Norma Rodriguez. And Ms. Rodriguez will help us with monitoring the questions in the chat. And additionally, we have with us tonight Principal Sean England and Principal Casey McMurray. They will also, once we get to some more of the middle school specific questions, they will be providing us with some support in answering those as well. And we have our middle school assistant principals, Lori Nuno and Kevin Slavin, with us as well. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to go through, along with President Lien, the most frequently asked questions that we have gathered through our meetings, as well as the 1,772 people, parents, who have submitted questions for these parent Q&As. Top on the list is, how do I get in touch with somebody if I have a question after the meeting? Or how do I get in touch with somebody if I wasn't able to ask my question to begin with? All you need to do is go to our website. And if you go to our website at musd.org, you're going to see our homepage. And this is a pop-up message that has the latest information. You'll click that to make it go away. And then come down to our quick links where you'll see superintendent. Click on that, and that'll take you to our superintendent's page. And if you scroll down, you'll see how to submit any inquiries that you have to the Office of the Superintendent. And here you would add your name. If you happen to be representing an organization, you would add in the organization as well as your organization's tax ID. Here you'll write what your address is, your mailing address, as well as your email address. And in this box, this is where you will write your question or your comment or idea, and then press submit. And it comes to my office where we will take a look at the question and then make sure the person who is responsible for whatever it is that connects to your question receives it so that they can respond to you within 1 to 2 business days. Another frequent question is, how do I enroll my student in 100% distance learning in MUSD Educate Everywhere? Well, again, as I showed you, you're going to go to our website, musd.org. And underneath the quick links, you will see these links here. So these are the quick links. And then here you will see the link if you are a parent whose child is already a student of Milpitas Unified. You would click here to register your child for 100% distance learning for the year, or at least half of the year. And if you're brand new to the school district and your child has not yet entered one of our schools as a student, then you would click here for information about enrolling in 100% distance learning under MUSD Educate Everywhere for new students. I mentioned that as of this afternoon, we have 1,772 people who have submitted questions in preparation for these Q&As. So what I did is I took all those questions and I put them into a word cloud software program that takes the most frequent words and then puts them together in a graphic. So here's the result of those 1,772 questions. We see that the greatest questions have to do, as they should, because we are about kids, with children, school, learning, teachers, and then options, distance learning, kids, school year, hybrid model, questions, school plans, homeschooling, social distancing, homeschool, social distancing, teachers, testing, school hours, middle school, contingency plans, sensitive cases, first semester, hybrid learning program. So what we have are the most frequent areas of questions that we're going to share with you tonight. And we have them categorized. So the first set is safety. And safety is the #1 area that we all need to know about. Because without safety, it isn't as easy to work or to learn. So these are the safety protocols that we have in place. And I would like to preface something which is in Milpitas Unified, we have 5 strategic goals. And our first strategic goal is building a culture of we. And there are many different aspects of building a culture of we. One of them is involving people in decisions that greatly impact the whole system. And I think you would agree with me that COVID-19 has greatly impacted our whole system. Since COVID-19 hit in March, we had 3 days to prepare, and then we all, including yourselves and our students, we all dove into 100% distance learning. And while it was really clunky, there were heartaches, there were disappointments, there were challenges, there were also joys, there was also creativity, and there was also possibility. One possibility that emerged is how we work together as parents and teachers. You parents are truly the children's first teachers. And we've talked over the years very much about the importance of parent engagement. We've talked about how we can get more parents involved, how we can get more parents and guardians to come to meetings. How do we know what parents and guardians would like for their students' education? Well, guess what? We now have the greatest model of parent-guardian engagement with student learning and teachers than we've ever had. Because at home, you have to be there to support your child's learning just as much as we need to be there to support your child's learning. And we learned from talking with all of you in various meetings that we had, as well as talking with our students and with our teachers and other team members, some of the aspects of diving into distance learning 100% of the time that were in sore need of improvement. So we didn't do just one survey to find out how many people were interested in 100% distance learning or what people's ideas and concerns were. We did multiple surveys, resulting in over 6,000 respondents from March through June. And that shaped what we knew that we needed to work on. Additionally, we invited parents, students, and team members to be a part of our planning for 2021. And I'm very proud to say that we have about 245 people who are involved in building these plans for 2021. I know some of my colleagues in other school districts have committees of 50, 40, 30, 20. I know that we are the only one with whom I've talked that has 245 participants in planning our details. So what you're going to hear tonight is, in some respect, a result of some of that planning that's going on. Safety is one example. We have a safety committee. It's called the Systems Committee. And that committee is the one that has designed what our safety protocols and PPE are. Our safety protocols. We have signage that's ready to go. We have plans for how we will create one-way footpaths, because in creating one-way footpaths, it helps students, it helps adults to maintain social distancing. Similarly to if you happen to go to Starbucks or to a grocery store, you see the directional arrows showing us which way to come in and which way to come out. There will be hand sanitizer in every classroom and every office. There will be multiple opportunities throughout the day for students and teachers and team members to wash their hands. There will be signs reminding everybody of the importance of washing hands for at least 20 seconds, as well as sneeze guards in place at our offices and in those classrooms where we have our smallest learners, as well as our learners with great challenges. We will have some sort of sneeze guard between the desks where it's called for. And then for all of our students, we have invested in something called a portable sneeze guard. And it's a tri-fold like this. And it's clear. And for our young learners, they will just put it onto their desktop and it'll stay there. But for our older students who travel from one class to the next, they will just pick it up, fold it, and take it with them to the next class and then put it in the slots. Some other examples of safety protocols that we will have in place is, unfortunately, we won't be able to have volunteers in the classrooms. That doesn't mean that we don't need volunteers though. We will have instead ways that you can volunteer from afar to support the learning that's going on in the classrooms as well as at home. So those are examples of the safety protocols that we have in place. Personal protective equipment, or PPE. The state of California, based on our 2018-19 numbers, is providing us with 60 days worth of facial coverings for students as well as team members, gallons and gallons of hand sanitizer, and also for our nurses, and we have 2 in the district, as well as our health clerks, and every school has a health clerk. They will receive additional masks and PPE. And our planning committee has determined that for those team members who work one-on-one with students who have needs for assistance in the bathroom, for example, that they will have full PPE gear to wear. The last question under safety is, well, what happens if we have somebody in the classroom who has COVID? What are you gonna do? If we have somebody in the classroom who has COVID, thankfully Governor Newsom, in conjunction with Public Health Department, has provided us with guidelines about when to send people home. So if in a classroom, an elementary classroom, which is supposed to be a stable cohort of students, meaning they don't go from one class to the other, they stay there, the whole class will be quarantined for 14 days if there is a case in that classroom. If a school has 5% of the school with COVID, then the entire school closes. If 25% of the students in a school district, or 25% of the schools, have cases of COVID that cause them to close, then the entire school district will be in quarantine for at least 14 days, and most likely 24. So those are the precautions that we have in place. Also, there's symptoms check, and we are working on a app in conjunction with Parent Square that will enable our parents and our team members to provide morning checks on symptoms with the students as well as with ourselves. You might ask, well, what about temperatures? There is constant research going on throughout the country and the world, and the latest from our public health department is that temperature checking is inaccurate. Not only that, but it violates the rule of social distancing. And so with that in mind, the public health department is not asking us to check temperatures, but instead to do either have parents at home do symptoms reporting, which is what we're going to do, in conjunction of our school personnel checking and keeping track of our students in case they do exhibit any kind of symptoms of COVID or otherwise, and in which case we will follow our normal protocols. And how will you be notified if somebody has COVID? The Public Health Department has specific forms that we are required to submit to all of our parents and guardians, as well as team members who might have been in contact with anybody who has COVID. Very similar to what we have to do if somebody in a classroom has been exposed to chickenpox, strep throat, or the norovirus. Let me move down into registration and enrollment. I think I've pretty much covered the main idea about how do I register for Educate Everywhere 100% distance learning. If I really want my child to be in 100% distance learning for at least half the year, no matter what kind of safeguards we have in place. The other question along that is, will I have my same homeschool? It's more of an issue for elementary than it is for middle school. And in any case, your homeschool will remain your homeschool for distance learning if that's what you choose to do. Another question is, well, what if we get into where we have the hybrid or part of MUSD Educate Everywhere is done in person along with the distance learning, can I decide like in October or November to switch to 100% and vice versa? And unfortunately, no, you can't. And the reason is because we need to make sure that that we have the appropriate staffing for the 100% distance learning, as well as the model where we have some in person. However, at the semester, at the end of December, if that is something that you want to switch to, then we can definitely look at that for you. Moving down to schedules and attendance. When does school start? President Leon?
Yes, school starts on August 13, and the registration deadline for enrolment is July 25th. Superintendent, I think something's wrong with your mic. Can you adjust it closer?
With my mic?
Okay, now we can hear you better.
Okay. All right, and then the question about, will families be on the same schedule? If you happen to have more than one student in Russell or at Rancho, what we figured out that we can do to try and keep the students on the same schedule is to register them by residence so that everybody in the household is at the same school. However, if you have a child at Rancho, a child at Rose, and a child in Milpitas High School, we unfortunately won't be able to enroll everybody on the same schedules. Another question that comes up is around grading and progress reporting and attendance. And some of the things we learned this spring were that we need to make sure we take daily attendance. We need to provide our parents with regular updates and communication about progress of the students. We need to make sure our students are engaged, and if they're not engaged, we need to re-engage them, and we need to build in a multi-system tiered approach to ensuring that they're engaged. We also need to make sure that we capture and document evidence of students being engaged every week. And we need to make sure that there is daily live interaction between teachers and students. So all of those things will be a part of 2021 in MUSD Educate Everywhere. And for those of you who are wondering, well, Superintendent Jordan, that all sounds great, but how do I know for sure that's going to happen? Well, besides the fact that our teachers want the best for their students, because our teachers really like to do the best job they can, and so these things will be in place. We also are in agreement on those with the state, and those are some of the requirements from the state as well. There was a question in the chat about math placement. Could I have either Principal England or Principal McMurray respond to the question about math placement for 8th grade?
Sure. So at the beginning of the year, after we get the first week or so underway, we will send out information regarding a date when students who are not already accelerated in a math class will have the chance to take what is known as the MDTP. It's a test that we give students, and it's one of the criteria that we use to determine if a student qualifies for advanced math. So we'll send out information to all parents and students when school starts so that they are aware of the date and time that that test will be given. And we will also remind them of the rubric which we use to determine math acceleration for all students.
And just to add to that, yes, it would be for 7th grade as well. Though actually it wouldn't have to be, simply because they should have taken their test in the 6th grade. But if they're new to the district, we can do it. And that test is looking now like it will probably occur beginning of September, because I got notified just today or yesterday that it was at least August 31st is when we could start. So it's probably more like the beginning of September.
Thank you, Principal England and Principal McMurray. Before we dive into what the middle school model looks like, President Leanne, let's take a few questions.
All right, we do have Devang.
Yes, hi. Thank you for this question and answer sessions. That's really helpful. I would like to know that if how do I end? My daughter will be going into Russell from this year onwards. She was in 6th grade. Now she'll be going 7th grade. So does she have to register again? And my follow-up question would be, so in hybrid, do you have any percentage, like how many percentage of students have registered for hybrid versus how many are for virtual or 100% online? And I have one more question. Will the teachers be same, let's say in hybrid, one day she goes with teacher in Brussels, then the next 4 days, will it be different teacher or will it be like a same teacher from the same school? How will it work? Thank you.
So before I ask Principal England to respond to the part about how a 7th grader is registered, a 6th grader is registered into the middle school, I'd like to ask that we wait on your questions about what the model looks like, because we're going to explain that in detail. And I also want to add that you asked for the percentage of students who are who have asked for hybrid or in-person support versus 100% distance learning. And I don't have a percentage, but I can tell you that district-wide, we have over 2,000 students who would like the 100% distance learning.
Okay. And my next question is the teachers.
I was just about to answer the registration piece. So the way it works in Milpitas, all families have to register their students every year. And so regardless of whether your child was in Milpitas MUSD school last year or not, you still have to go through the registration process. For 7th graders, Russell's registration process is going to be next week, next Thursday and Friday. I sent out a parent square a few weeks back, and I plan to send out another one tomorrow to remind everybody about the process. There will be social distancing protocols. We have time slots by Alpha to ensure that things are broken down to limit the crowding. We're looking at no more than maybe like 30 to 35 students in any one given block of time, and they'll be spread out across the campus. Does that answer your question?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Devang.
Let's take another couple of questions, President Leanne.
Yes, we will take Zana.
Hello, can you hear me?
Would you turn your video on, please? We'd love to see your face.
Okay, can you see?
Hi, Lana.
Hi, so my question is about high school. As far as I know, we will have meeting next week, question and answers, but we have to decide until July 24th what kind of learning we have to choose for our child. Can you somehow postpone it, or can you make this meeting early, because we do have questions, and to decide what model fits us without knowing anything about high school, it's really difficult.
I understand that. For high school, I think that because the high school program will be different, I think we could work with you on giving you some more time to make a decision about that.
Thank you. And I do have one more question, which probably related to everyone. So if you start hybrid learning and in few weeks government or California government will decide, no, it doesn't work, we have to go to online. We will go to online learning, right?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Ritika.
Hi, I want to know how will the teachers.
Would you turn your video on, please?
Hi, Ritika.
Hi, I want to know how the teachers will be assigned.
Assigned for middle school, that
Yes, middle
I
school.
will ask Principal McMurray to answer that. Wait, let me ask, are you talking about assigned for the subject areas that they teach?
Yes.
Okay, Principal McMurray.
So each year we work collaboratively with the teams in order to create equitable groups for all of our teams. Teams are 7th grade teams and 8th grade teams. So we get together and we look at the different dynamics, we look at the different demographics, and we strive to create as equitable a team as we can so that students have the optimal experience, obviously. So we look at the different groups such as special education, English learners, and look at those specific needs in order to give them the classes that they need, which are at times very limited just because of the nature of their learning needs. And then we go ahead and we schedule the other students. There are sometimes requests if there are twins or if there are other needs with certain students, but that's the process that we have followed for the last at least 6 years in order to create groups of students in an equitable way in 7th and 8th grade.
Thank you.
Principal McMurray.
All right. We can take another question from SN.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, my question was, what would be the difference between the hybrid learners and the 100% distance learning learners? Will they be learning the same syllabus? I mean, the same amount of, the syllabus and the subjects? What extra thing would the hybrid learners be getting from this system that you're going to have?
Good question. So you want to know, is the content area the same, the core standards that they have to learn in each of the subject areas?
Yes.
And what is different about the in-person with the hybrid?
Yes.
So the answer is yes. Every student in 7th grade world history or 8th grade US history, English, math, algebra, they all have the same standards that they have to meet and that they have to learn, and the same frameworks that are developed by the state. As far as what is different in the hybrid model, there is some in-person support, and in particular, you'll see, I think we'll go to explaining that now so you can see what that might look like.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Let's start first with Principal England, and then Principal McMurray, if you could add in, so the two of you can share with us how the middle school model will work.
All right, so as you can see, what we have planned is having the day be a typical day, but we've broken down our periods. So students will only be seen for 3 periods each day. That way they'll be able to see all of their teachers at least twice during the week. If you look after lunch, you can see that we have our 3rd period and then our 6th period. And then followed by that, there's a teacher prep time as well as team PLC time. So for students are basically finished roughly at 1:40. It's akin to our minimum schedule day, or not minimum, early release day. Mr. McMurray, would you like to add anything else? Talk about the Wednesdays?
Sure. So on Wednesday, we do not have a schedule like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, where they are meeting with their teachers. The Wednesday schedule is specifically designed to support our vulnerable and dependent learners. So providing specific interventions and small group instruction opportunities for those groups of learners is what will be happening on Wednesday, in addition to collaborative planning opportunities for the teachers to coordinate how that work will look, how that outreach will take place, looking at students who might not be engaging in the online learning, and how to re-engage them, in addition to some other meetings that are more teacher based. So as well as IEPs and SSTs. But that's the Wednesday schedule, and I think Mr. Anglin covered the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday aspect.
Do we have more questions, President Lian?
Yes, we do. We have VS. Actually, we have De Herrera's family, but it disappeared from this screen. Did you not have any more questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. So
Can we
in
see?
regards to, I'm sorry, I don't have video at this time. So in regards to 100% distance learning, what would that look like? Is it teacher, like 100% teacher led, or are they going to get assignments and they do it on their own, or like what is that going to entail?
Yes, every day we have minimum minutes that have to be met. So for middle school, it's 240 minutes. That's a combination of teacher instruction as well as student research, reading, practice, and projects. So every day, Monday through Friday, the student has to have the equivalent of 240 minutes of instruction and learning. Some of that instruction each day has to be what's called synchronous, which means live, like we're doing right now. And other parts can be videotaped, or, and it could be small group projects, it could be individual projects, but all guided by the teacher. And in this case, because we're looking at middle school, we would be looking at 3 to 6 teachers, depending on if a teacher is doing something called coring. Teachers who have 2 subject areas, for example, I have social sciences as well as intro to literature. I could teach both of those classes to the same group of students. So they would only have 1 teacher, but 2 subject areas.
So if we were comparing 100% distance learning to either hybrid or going to school full-time in person, is there a difference in the amount of hours they get live training or live teaching?
No, because they all have to have 240 minutes every day, regardless of if they're there for in-person or there 100%. Mr. Principal Anglin or Principal McMurray, would you like to add anything?
The one big thing is that at Russell, we also utilize Summit Learning Program. And so you'll have some students who will, their experience looks a little different than the traditional students' experience when it's online. But regardless, both students in either scenario will still be having access to the standards aligned curriculum.
Yes, teachers will be working to identify the essential standards for each core subject area: math, English, social studies, and science, and focus on ensuring that each student receives instruction accordingly.
Right. Thank you, principals. We have VS.
Hi, good evening. One question I have is regarding when the kids learn on the 100% distant learning model, will the Google Classroom be interactive in such a way that kids can interact with the classroom. For example, if they have any question, it can guide where to find answers or something like interactive session. Will it do, or the kids talk with the teachers and the teachers tell them what to do?
Are you asking about how the assignments are turned
Google
in?
Classroom, will there be an interactive session where the tool will help the kids to learn, or is it just a video where it has the documents in it and they can just go and click it? And
it sounds like you're asking, how does the Google Classroom work?
yeah.
Okay. So the Google Classroom is what's called a learning management system. It's like a framework for a teacher to use with instruction. Part of it could be live, part of it could be videotaped, part of it could be doing collaboration. Like at work, you might have some projects that you work on collaboratively online with the same document, and Google Classroom allows you to do that. You maybe you're working on a presentation, and either as an individual or again with the other students in your class, Google Classroom allows you to do that as well. And it also allows you to have communication where the teacher leaves what the schedule is for the day, and where the students can ask questions. And perhaps maybe one of the assistant principals, either Mr. Slavin or Ms. Nuno, since I know you're here too, perhaps one of you could add in for us some more information about how Google Classroom works.
So Google Classroom is the main platform where our teachers will be assigning the work, but that is not the only platform that they will use or choose to use to interact with their students. So our teachers last year and even over the summer have been really looking at the platforms that they can use to be more interactive with their students. And then we also, as administrators, have been looking at different platforms that they can use in conjunction with Google Classroom to make classrooms more interactive, and also to allow that student to teacher breakout rooms like Zoom offers to do small group, but then also have everyone online at the same time.
And to add to that, collaboration is really important to our students' education, and that's something that we're still leading forward with on a distance learning platform. Google Classroom, as Ms. Nuno stated, is a good platform for everyone to kind of come together, but teachers have been looking at other platforms to keep that collaboration moving forward, where students can still meet in small groups and then return back to the whole classroom. Similar to all the other Google Suites, students can collaborate on Google Docs and other slide presentations as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have Yee's iPad. Are you here, Yee?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I have two questions. The first question is, for children who are doing the hybrid while they are sitting in the classroom, will the teacher be teaching to the kids in person as well as giving that same lecture to kids doing a distant learning at the same time? i.e., is the teacher going to be teaching to two crowds? One is the in-person students and the other one is virtual at the same time? So that's the first question. The second question that I have is, kids have different personality. You have some extroverts, you get some introverts. And that being said, are there any frameworks that the district has to really accommodate the two different personalities, because they are truly gonna have a different learning style as well, whether they are introvert or extrovert?
Would one of you like to take that question? Mr. McMurray or Mr. England?
So the question was, will there be in-person learning simultaneously with distance learning?
Yep. And
No.
so perhaps you could explain a little
Yeah.
bit more in your response too, that in middle school, we do have a very different in-person hybrid model than we do for elementary and high school. And so you could also explain a bit more about how different that is, because it's more that at the middle school, the majority of it is distance learning.
Correct. So what we're going to be doing for the first part of the year is distance learning. So it's going to be 100% remote learning. Teachers will be interacting with students, as the superintendent has mentioned, with daily live interactions and supporting their students. So it will be an entirely virtual experience. There will be no students in the classroom while that lesson is happening. It will be completely online and through distance learning. That said, at the elementary level, let me clarify something. The entire district is going to be distance learning for the first 6 weeks. So regardless of whether you're kindergarten to 12th grade, for the first 6 weeks, your experience will be through distance learning. So everyone will be doing the same thing. After the 6 weeks have gone by, at the high school level, I don't want to get into the details because I'm not overly familiar with them, but I believe there will be a cohort that goes online for the remainder of the semester. And then there will be another group that will go to certain periods a day in person. At the elementary level, I believe they're splitting the groups of children into quarters. So each quarter will go 1 day a week. And then there will be a Wednesday similar to what the middle school and the high school have. So for the middle school, we have all students experiencing learning online, and that will likely continue for the greater part of the first, I guess you could call it, semester. And then looking at the natural transition of winter break in December, studying and being aware of the conditions that are existing, looking at what phase we will move into when we return in January. But for the first part of the year, from August to December, is very likely going to be the way it starts at the beginning of the year, which is distance learning. I don't know if that covered everything or if that was a good comparison to the other levels. I'm trying to remember all the models that I've seen for elementary and high school. So
Yep, you did a good job. I might add though, at the elementary, after a certain period of time, then they transition to 2 days a week of in-person instead of just one.
Okay,
for
yeah.
each of the course.
Right.
And then how about Mr. England, could you respond to the part of Mr. Yee's question about introverts and extroverts?
So one of the things that a lot of teachers have been working on while we were in shelter in place is trying to ensure ways of ensuring that students are allowed to access the curriculum in the best way possible. And so there was a lot of experimentation with strategies to help those who might be a little bit smaller or quieter and more withdrawn from the groups. Teachers then also reached out to those students in smaller groups, because sometimes students don't feel comfortable possibly talking in a large group, but they will talk with a smaller group. You've had that occur. Primarily, that's the main issue with the introverts versus the extroverts. Yeah, I don't know if I answered the question as well as I could have, but I did answer it. Mr. Yee, do you have any more questions? Or?
Well, you know, I appreciate you touch on it. The intent behind it is that, as you know, with the distant learning, this is great for children who are introverts, right? Because they don't have to have that physical contact. It doesn't really force them to, you know, to appear in person as much. Now, for extroverts, sometimes that drives them crazy because they need that human interaction. They need that physical contact. So if you have kids who have two different personalities and you have a group of students, I was just curious if if you guys have discussed ways to really address that, because I'm putting myself in a position like you as a teacher. I mean, it's already challenging it is to manage kids in person when you have introvert and extrovert in the same classroom, let alone talk about distance learning. So I was just wondering if that conversation has come up and that you guys, really have some kind of frameworks to really accommodate those two different personalities, because it is super challenging already when they're in the classroom and try to manage, 20 or so kids alone. And so I was just wondering if that even, has been already discussed.
We've discussed it since we haven't had an opportunity to meet as a staff over the summer. But I do know that a lot of teachers are utilizing what we call breakout rooms in Zoom that do allow students to discuss amongst their cohorts. And then the teachers pop into the different Zoom breakout rooms to hear the conversation and then pull the class back together. That way, it's an attempt to recreate virtually that small group setting of partner share. And that way the students are able to connect with each other, not necessarily only talking to their teacher.
And to add to what Mr. Anglin was saying,
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Slavin.
I know that extroverts, sometimes they're striving for something more than just academic. They're looking for that peer connection and school activities and school spirit. And that's something that our teachers have addressed at the end of last school year by incorporating spirit weeks, challenges, dance videos. So we're still trying to bring that fun aspect of school into the house so that those extroverts have something to put that outlet for energy.
And I might add, it's there's a lot of different layers to your questions, because we're talking about social emotional learning, and we have a whole committee working on social emotional learning, and that is an expectation for this new school year that we all engage in that, because we need it, adults too, and this time of distance learning and working and talking. And the other aspect too is that we all have different styles of learning and different styles of communicating. So that's why it's important for us as teachers, as best that we can, especially given the parameters that we have to work within this year, that we try to provide different opportunities for students in pairs or triads or groups to have communication with one another. Because as we look towards the workforce, we know that employers want people who have broad perspectives and the ability to work with people of all different types of cultures, backgrounds, and even, as you said, people who are extroverts and introverts. They need to figure out how to work together. So those are all parts of what a teacher figures out when he or she is designing their way that they'll do their lesson planning.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Next question from Sudi.
Oh, hi. I have a question. I was in a meeting last week too for my son in elementary school. I also have a daughter going to 7th grade coming up in the fall to Rancho. My first question is, I think I understand part of the conversation that we just had, but I don't seem to comprehend completely. So I'm just trying to work with my, I guess, my thought. So I want to know, at the very beginning, when during that first 6 weeks, we're all learning virtually, right? And then, so I'm assuming, say, a class, there are 30 students, and all 30 kids in one class will be learning virtually. And then, say, after the 6 weeks, some kids, like, say, half of the kids, they go to school, they choose the hybrid, and then half the kids, they continue to do 100% learning, right, online, right? So so are these, say, for example, the 100% learning, the 15 kids, right? Are they going to be combined just because they have less people now? Are they going to combine with another classroom? Is it going to be that? Or, right. And then so is it going to be combined with a different class where they may have different curriculum, or I don't know?
So you're asking about how the distance learning changes the numbers of students on campus, and then if that then in turn changes what their configurations. And the factor for determining how many students can be in a class is based on the ability for us to provide social distancing. We have some classrooms in the district where for our larger students, as they get older, they grow larger, then we can only have maybe 12 kids in the classroom. Whereas there might be some classrooms or areas such as the multi-purpose room where we could have a larger number of students together because we can keep them socially distanced. So that's the number one factor about how many students are in a class together is social distancing. Secondly, the middle school model that you see is really very unique because I do have to qualify some of the earlier statements that I made. The middle school model is predominantly 100% online for everybody. And then you see they bring in small groups of students for in-person support. That's where the hybrid piece comes in. If you, as a parent, don't want to even risk having your students coming in person with the safety precautions that we have in place, then you would choose 100%, meaning that they're not going to come in for in-person support. They're just going to remain completely online. So that's the difference at the middle school level. I know some of you have children in high school and elementary where it's more frequent in person in smaller class sizes. But here at the middle school model that you see is predominantly all 100% learning with targeting students who have a need to come in for some in-person. And I'm certain that while we see on here LTEL, which is long-term English learner, SWD is a student with a disability, GAP would be students who are not on track for graduation or who have, who just aren't making the grades and they're struggling. And then SST would be those students who have been through the student study team because they have some special needs or there's something going on, maybe emotionally, that requires some extra attention. Those students will be brought in for the in-person support. So that's really the big difference between the middle school models and the high school and elementary.
Okay, and then I also see, I'm looking at the I guess the table you have right now. I see the gray area, I mean the orange and also the purple. And so is middle school also geared towards to, you know, if I choose to go with a hybrid, is it the same as elementary school where we start with 1 day? And then if it's okay, then, so how does it work? I still don't seem to understand, I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. It's I have to say, every time we hear it and we explain it, I myself internalize it even more. So it is all very complicated because it's so different from how we experience school and learning. And every question is good. It just helps us to clarify more. So the difference here between elementary and high school, they're going to have ultimately 2 days a week of in-person support. At the middle school level, predominantly everybody is on 100%. And then those students who are, you might call them dependent learners, meaning that they have additional challenges or issues or developmental needs, and they really need to have some in-person support in small groups. So that's the difference, is middle school is really based on the idea that we're gonna have everybody 100% and then bring those struggling students or vulnerable students or students with special needs in for some in-person support.
So pretty much, if I hear it correctly, I think middle school is more, everybody's geared to 100% learning. That's right?
Yep.
Okay, good then.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Oh, last question.
Yes.
Let her answer the question. Let her ask the question, then I'll ask afterwards.
Oh, right. Just one last question. How about the testing? Is it going to be done online? I think I heard a question before, but I guess I didn't really catch the answer. So are all the testing done online?
Which testing are you referring to?
I don't know. I've never been to middle school here myself, so I'm just assuming there will be testing or some sort of exams where kids.
Oh, like the regular kinds of assessments that come,
Right.
and not like the math placement or, yeah. I know that I think we have some of our teachers from middle school I saw in the chat. Would any of you like to pop up and share with us what you're planning, your thoughts are about how you're going to do the student assessment and figuring out if the students are learning the material?
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I know I see some teachers from Rancho and Russell there in the chat. I'm not going to call you out, but I'm going to give you a chance to pop up if you want to give us an idea of what you're thinking for assessments.
Okay, so I'll go. This is Stephanie Russell. And I use Summit Learning Platform, and our students during distance learning in March, they still continue to take their content assessments online. They shared with me their notes, and then I approved their content assessments. There's a variety of different online sources that teachers can utilize if they wish. It's really just going to come down to the individual teacher and their preferences, and also the different online materials that they'll use, but they will definitely go over everything with their syllabus with parents at the beginning of the year.
Thank you, Ms. Whittams.
All right.
Any other teachers out there?
I'm not using Summit, but I'll be assessing students the same way I would in my classroom. We have like Google forms that they can fill out, classwork assignments that they turn in. I have a lot of public speaking opportunities where we get together and I listen to them and check in. So there are ways to assess them throughout the trimester.
Thank you, Ms. Chen.
Okay. Vice President Norwood?
Yes, there's a couple of questions that I want to make sure that I get clarified because it's a big part of the chat that I'm seeing. One, how do parents register for each school site? And that's the first question. Just to repeat the answer, how do parents register for school at each of our middle schools?
Okay, so I'll ask Principal England to explain registration for Russell and Principal McMurray to explain registration for Rancho. And when we're talking about registration for middle school, it's what we do every year for middle school. So it's not, what they're talking about is not registering for 100% or not. They're just talking in general about the process for middle school. So go ahead, Principal England.
Perfect, thank you. So yes, as I stated earlier, next Thursday and Friday is the 7th grade registration. We have it broken down by alpha. So each alphabet gets a 30-minute window to come through. We have, the easiest way to think about it is that, as Superintendent Jordan said, all families have to complete the registration process online through Aries. You can't do it yet because it hasn't actually rolled over to that year. You're gonna have to wait until next week if we're in the 2021 school year to actually complete the registration process. Once you're finished with that, you'll print out the emergency card at the end. You will be bringing that emergency card. It's just a sheet of paper, but it shows that you've completed all the sections of the enrollment or the registration process, sorry about that. And you'll have that, you'll bring that in. You'll also get your picture taken. The student will get a picture taken for their student ID and they'll be out. It should take no more than, really, once they get to the spot to turn in their work and then get their picture taken, about 10 minutes max. But the line might be a little long, but that's why I pointed out earlier, the way it's set up, there won't be more than about 35 kids during that period. Sometimes there'll be 16 students, sometimes it'll be 25 students. Sometimes it'll be 30. The max is 35. The average is really about like 24. And so we have put markings on the ground for social distancing. I've recommended for all families to make certain that their children come with a mask. We will have some, but not enough masks if all students don't show, but we do have masks for students that might need it if something were to go awry. And then for the 8th graders, it would be the subsequent Thursday and Friday. And it's following the exact same process.
There are 2 quick questions in the chat. One is, Principal, would Thursday, Friday registration apply if to the student newly enrolled if they have not finalized enrollment yet? From Lucas.
And so the answer is yes, it would still apply. As I had shared with Lucas in the chat, our registrar will be reaching out to families who haven't finished over the net. Well, she gets in on Monday. And so it'll be between Monday and Wednesday where she'll reach out to make certain that that's all finalized. So then he can complete the registration online process and then print out the page. I want to say it really takes, I've never had to do it because I don't have a child in MUSD, but if you are computer savvy, it doesn't really take more than like 45 minutes max. So you can do it in one sitting. And I saw the second question about printing the emergency card. So the way it works is that we're actually going to have some assistance for families who might need it Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. We were hoping for Monday, but I don't know if Aries will be completely rolled over yet. So we're gonna have to push it to Tuesday and Wednesday. And so yes, once you have finished your emergency card, if you don't have a printer at home, what you can do is simply save it as a PDF and attach it and send it to us. And we can then print out. But again, with the cost, we would really prefer families that can print out to make things easier on the school.
Thank you. Principal McMurray, it's slightly different for Rancho for registration.
No, it's not too different. We have different dates. So our registration dates are Thursday, August 6th and Friday, August 7th. We are assigning students according to their last name, and it will begin at 8:30 in the morning and conclude at about 2 in the afternoon. And LifeTouch has created a new touchless photograph process. So they no longer have name cards, which will greatly enhance the safety aspect of picture taking. And we will have social distancing in place for the lines as well as inside the gym area, as well as the expectation for everyone to be wearing a mask or a face covering. So there will be 2 days, one for 7th grade, which is Thursday, August 6th, and one is for 8th grade, which is Friday, August 7th. Obviously, if you cannot make one day or the other, you can come the day you're available. But those are the, that information's on our website, as well as included in the packet that we sent out to all Rancho families.
Thank you.
Vice President Norwood, I think there's a follow-up question for Rancho.
You know, how many students in each group time slot during the registration day at Rancho?
It could vary. It just depends on if everyone comes at their time slot. I would approximate similar to Russell, maybe 30 to 40 students per time slot. Our time slots are an hour each, and we divide it up into, for example, A to E, last name, F to H, etc.
Can someone briefly talk about the safety protocols that are planned or will be in place? Because we are talking about now students, with the cases rising in Santa Clara County, we are talking about bringing people to the campus in order for them to do the registration process versus being able to do it online? Can someone talk about some of the processes that are already in place for that?
Sure. So it's similar to what we did when we had our textbook return day. And for that, we had a control at the door where students entered, and we made sure that we limited the number of individuals inside the gym at any one time. We required face coverings for every individual who entered, and we ensured social distancing inside the gym. We had sufficient adult volunteers to monitor to make sure that we did not have too many students or individuals in the gym at any one given time, and that everyone was distancing when waiting in line or when actually involved in the process in the gym. So we will follow a similar a similar protocol for when we do our registration in August.
And Russell is similar to following what we did for our book return and item pickup.
All right. Thank you, principals. We are now moving back to the questions. The next person is Devon.
Yeah, hi. Thanks again. So as per I see the schedule over here, like it shows like first period, second period over there, yeah, for middle school. So is this schedule for in person, or is it for 100% virtual, or is, and I just heard that there is no option for hybrid. Is that so, or I'm confused over there? Will there be option for hybrid as well?
Thank
For
you,
middle
Devon.
school?
I'm going to ask Assistant Superintendent Rodriguez, could you speak a little bit to the 100% distance learning versus the middle school hybrid?
Sure. Thank you, Superintendent Jordan. Good evening, everyone. The only difference in terms of the 100% hybrid, 100% distance learning and the hybrid is that in the hybrid, the students will get face-to-face in-person lessons, whereas the 100% distance learning, there will not be face-to-face in-person contact or lessons. Everything else is the same test that they will be taking. There will be the same curriculum and standards-based curriculum that the students will be exposed to. That's basically the only difference.
So there is an option for hybrid as well, right, for middle school?
The hybrid can be considered as the normal, and the 100% virtual is the option that you have to opt in.
Okay, so let's say I have enrolled for hybrid, so that will be like once in a week, student will go to the school and follow this schedule, whatever is there on this document. And let's say if for maths, like first day it's a maths and second day also maths. So first day when it goes for hybrid, there will be one teacher A, and in virtual, will there be a same teacher teaching maths, or will be a different teacher teaching maths, or how it will work?
If I'm understanding correctly, you are asking if the same teacher is going to be teaching in both the hybrid as well as in the 100% distance learning. Is that?
Yes, for the same subject, for the same throughout, yeah, for the same subject, yes.
That is to remain to be seen. We still have to take a look at the number of teachers that have chosen to be hybrid and the teachers that have chosen to be on the 100% distance learning.
Okay, thank you.
So again, in the middle school model, it's different from elementary and high school. And it is essentially 100% distance learning with in-person, you see here, with our vulnerable or students who need that in-person support. So if you don't want your child to have in-person support, then you would have to register them for the 100% distance learning. But if you do want them to have some in-person support, then don't register them for 100% learning. I hope that helps.
Okay, so hybrid is like only for if you need really help for in-person support or not, then only you can choose for hybrid, or else it's like 100% virtual for middle school. And that's how it is different from elementary
And high school, yes.
and high school, because our younger one is in elementary, so it's different. Yeah, so that's what I was like confused now. My elder one's in middle school, so I'm confused, like, okay, what should I go for?
It
Yeah,
is
now
very confusing. Yep.
okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. The next question is from Maria.
Hello?
Hi,
Hello,
Maria.
can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Hi, good evening. Thank you for your Q&A session. I have a question about different tests, like for example, the AMC 8, AMC 10. Will you continue doing this, or is it something you're going to revisit later in the semester? I know that there are some probably more burning issues right now.
Actually, that's a very burning issue, very much a burning issue. We won't have distance learning for the majority, excuse me. We won't have in-person learning for the majority of our students for the first part of the school year until the point in time that conditions are safe. And the governor announced that for those counties like Santa Clara County, which is on their watch list, until the county is off of the watch list for 14 straight days, we don't move to our in-person part of our models. And even before that, before the governor announced that last Friday, in Milpitas Unified, we stated back in early June that we were going to phase in any in-person support. And our thinking behind phasing in any in-person support is twofold. Number one, we want to make sure all safety precautions are in place, and we want to make sure that our team members, our teachers, all have what they need to be safe and healthy. Because without them, we don't have any programs to offer our learners. And yes, we want our learners to be safe as well. The other aspect of phasing in, so that at the very least for 6 weeks per MUSD's plan, regardless of if something changes in the Santa Clara County status, we will not start for the first 6 weeks, because we also, in addition to making sure everybody is safe, we also want to provide those opportunities for our teachers to connect with their students and with the students' parents about expectations for learning this year. We found from the spring that parents really need to have support in learning and understanding all the tools so they can support their children at home. And so we are building in also parent support. It's called Parent to Parent. And that will include things like how to use Google Classroom, or how to help my child with Khan Academy, whatever the tools might be. And additionally, we will be able to make sure that we have everybody who doesn't want in-person at all, will be able to have them in place. So know that in MUSD, everybody is starting off virtually, and for the first 6 weeks, and then we're phasing in as conditions allow. And I do have to say that we are very considerate of those students with the highest needs. Some of you may have students who are autistic, or who have a very difficult time sitting in front of a screen and have communication challenges. We are thinking through what we can possibly do to support them at this time, because we really want to make sure that every one of our learners is successful, while also making sure that every one of our teachers and our team members are safe.
Thank you. Do you think that the content on Thursday will be much different than today? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of people have a lot of more questions.
Nope, it'll be pretty much like today. And then going back to what we said at the beginning of the meeting, if you have a unique question that hasn't been answered, or even if somebody has asked it 50 times before and you still want to talk about it, then it's an important question, and please do submit it, and we'll make sure that we have time with you to answer that question. So again, you go to our homepage and click Superintendent, takes you to this page, and scroll down. Scroll from the top down, and you see where you enter your name, your address, your email, and submit your question. And within 1 to 2 business days, somebody will get back to you.
Thank you. Can I have one more last question for Principal McMurray, please? So for our kids who are going into the 8th grade, right? I don't recall them having any extra tests for math. How would they be placed into the specific math class or, you know, flavor of the math in terms of difficulty for the 8th grade? Thank you.
So we're going to be looking at the criteria that's on the rubric for math placement, and that's a district established rubric, and it includes teacher recommendation, it includes iReady results from last spring, and it also includes the student's math grade from, I would believe, the 2nd trimester. And we would also provide an opportunity for the students who are not in an accelerated math class at the beginning of the 2021 school year to take the MDTP, which is the math acceleration test. And so we would look at all those criteria, and based on that, we would make the decision that would best fit that student's standing.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi, can I ask a question? Hello?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So my question is regarding the in-person registration for Rancho. So I requested on the chat also, if you can provide all the documents and the photograph online, why does it have to be in person?
So we cannot provide the photograph online. That's something that Life Touch handles, and they are on our campus in the gym on those 2 dates. If for whatever reason you do not feel comfortable having your child come on campus for the picture and to complete the process, you can send us the information via a PDF, and there will be a scheduled date for makeup pictures, probably in September. And it might be a much better time for your child if that's a concern. So you could reach out to me separately, and we could have a conversation about how to accommodate your specific needs.
Yeah, my question was not specifically about, you know, taking a picture by Life Touch or whatever the vendor is. My question is, you know, people can take photos on their phone and send it across. Does it have to be in a specific format? That's why they need to come?
Correct. Life Touch actually provides our students with their ID cards, and that cannot be done anywhere else. They are the only company that is approved to produce our student ID cards. They have their ID number, their barcode, and their picture with the student, with the school logo and design. So that cannot be done from home.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize. I was speaking when my mute button was on. I wanted to remind everyone we are at 7:58 and we have about 7 to 8 parents with raised hand in the queue here. So Superintendent Xing is next. Xing?
Thank you and good evening, everyone. So okay. So
actually today is the first day I just heard that like the model for the middle school is a bit different from the primary school. I have a primary school kid and I have a middle school kid also. So the question I have is regarding about like, so in the middle school setting, how do we decide which kid go into which classroom? So for example, are we mixing students who choose to be 100% distance learning together with the people who is going to be kind of like the hybrid model? So that's question number one. I guess the question number two is like regarding about teacher, which teacher is going to teach which class. My understanding is that we're still waiting for the feedback from the teachers regarding about that. I mean, my kid belongs to the category where like he really like to know the familiar faces. So he's going to be into the 8th grade. So is he going to be taught by the same set of teachers from the 7th grade, or is going to be some other teachers from maybe another school, vice versa, that kind of situations?
Xing, did you say you were at Rancho or Russell?
I'm at Russell.
Okay, then I think I will ask Principal England or Assistant Principal Slavin to answer that.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry about that. So my first question is like, are we going to mix students who choose the 100% learning together with the students who choose to be hybrid into the same classroom for a particular subject?
All right, so for that part, right now, the short answer is based on students who want 100% distance learning, the district is trying to determine where, one, the number of students, and then two, which teachers would be teaching those students. So the is those students would not necessarily be within the same classroom as the traditional kids, but I'm not 100% certain on how the district plans to have the teachers who are teaching 100% distance learning work. That's something that we're still fleshing that, correct, Superintendent Jordan?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep.
And you had a second part of the question too.
Yeah, so my second part of the question is like, if it's not because of the COVID, right? So my 8th grade kids are going to be taught mostly by his 7th grade teachers. That's my understanding. So now I guess.
Yeah, we loop. So the way it works is that at Russell, we're at both middle schools, they're in teams. But what happens is that at Russell, the team stays together both years. And so we call that loop. And so your student who was in the 7th grade will have the same teachers in the 8th grade. And that way, you know, there are multiple reasons why we believe in that philosophy. There's no need to, I don't want to be long-winded. But but those teachers, all teachers at Russell teach both 7th and 8th grade at any given time, because you'll have one year you're teaching 7th grade, the next year you're teaching 8th grade, and you flip-flop back and forth.
I like that idea, put it this way. But my question is like, I'm giving the current situation, that is no longer going to be the scenario, right? I mean, now all of a sudden my kids has to choose whether they're going to be 100% online, they're going to be, or they're going back to school. And
the easiest way to think about it is that I can't at this time tell you what the 100% online, if you're trying to do 100% distance learning all year long, I can't at this point tell you who the teachers are going to be because I don't know yet. But if you are doing our middle school version of distance learning that can then transform into a hybrid, then I can let you know that your students would still be with their team.
Okay, so if they actually switch back to the hybrid model, they will still be with their team.
Right now, yep, there's. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so I mean, that was actually a very important question for my kids. So thank you.
All right, thank you. We will take the last question from Zana.
Well, my question is, there was very nice screen shown to us about schedule for classes. Can you please share a link to this screen?
Sure.
And another question, which is probably more important for middle and high schooler, do you plan to grade a student work at the end of, well, quarter or trimester or whatever, or do you plan to assign again credit, no credit?
They will have grades and they will have a GPA.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And please share a link to your screen about schedule for classes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I think that's it, President Lian.
Yes, I'm trying to get to the, Anusha, I know that you have your hand raised, but we ran out of time. We'd love to hear from you. Please send in your question to www.musd.org/superintendent.html, and we will get your questions answered. I would like to thank everyone who's on this Zoom meeting for all the hard work, for great questions, and for your partnership in our students' education. Thank you. Have a great night, and I'll hope to see all of you on Thursday, same time, 6:30 to 8.
Thank you, President Lian. We also have our president of our Teachers Association that I want to make sure I point out, Ms. Diana Orlando. Thank you for being with all of us.
Superintendent, show your face.
Oh, I'm off?
No, you're not off. I only see your forehead.
Oh, sorry, I sat down.
There you go. Although it's beautiful, but I'd like to see the whole face.